Trucks.
Look at this handsome rose garden that we find ourselves in.
We got a bulldozer.
A few stray camellia blooms.
How did a bulldozer start here?
In this relatively pleasant small business.
We're in San Diego. We're taking it to Sacramento.
Hey, it's a construction lot.
That begins to make sense. HMS, I suppose they make.
Her Majesty's Steamrollers.
Yes, excellent.
All right, so first order of business, getting out of the parking lot.
Yeah, let's do it. I got this, no problem.
I'm sure you do.
Handled, wrapped up tight. How you doing, Isaac?
Oh God, I'm so tired, Josh. I've been running in a deficit all week. I was at work for about 10 hours today. Got about maybe 4 hours of sleep before that. Long drive yesterday.
Ooh.
I've been trying to buy a car, which is difficult, particularly because I don't have any money right now. But I'm trying to buy a car anyway because I need to. And that involves contacting a lot of car dealerships and having to talk to car dealership people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all kinds of gross business, man.
Yeah.
And then there was a car that was interesting that I found that I wanted to buy, but then it was somebody bought it out from under me.
Ah.
And there's another one that's the same car, but it's like really far away, and it's a manual transmission. And I know how to drive one of those, but I was kind of hoping not to have to for the rest of however long I have this car.
Yeah.
So,
it sounds like just the kind of thing you don't want.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna have to buy some really. I mean, I'm looking for cars that are good for tall people, and I think I'm gonna have to buy some really boring one, like a Ford Focus.
Are those good for tall people?
Yeah, they got a good amount of headroom, but they don't look like they have a good amount of headroom from the outside, and that's what I want. I want to be ostentatiously in a car for tall persons, but I also don't want to drive an SUV or a truck or anything like that, and I have no money, so it's got to be either one of those like shoe-shaped small cars, which I love, but which
you wanted a box, right?
Yeah, box.
You wanted to drive a Cube.
Yeah. Maybe not literally one of the Nissan Cube. Although I should really see if I can find a used Nissan Cube. That hadn't occurred to me. Or
I didn't know that was the kind of car.
It is. It has like a weird wraparound rear windshield thing. You might have seen one of them around. Yeah, I should see if there are any used ones of those on the market. But I'm going to drive around on Sunday with Nick, and we're going to go to used car lots around the greater New Jersey tri-state area and test drive stuff, I think is what's going to happen.
That sounds like the fun part.
Yeah.
Whoa, I've never seen... it's never registered with me before just how many plants are clipping through that wall.
Aren't they growing out of the wall? Isn't that just...
maybe.
Wall mange? It seems...
I think they're just clipping through.
No, they're not. You can see from above. There's a verge. It's just
I
highly realistically rendered.
I disagree.
Crack goop.
Not seeing any here where the bushes aren't right up against the wall.
There it is.
Here where the bushes are right up against the wall.
You're right.
They're blatantly clipping
through. It totally is. Oh well. I was trying to give the game some credit, and you went and destroyed the illusion.
So sorry. That's what we do. We got to come to terms with the world we live in as it truly is. What are we talking about besides car shopping?
I mean, that would be more convincing if this wasn't a virtual world where we called the shots. We
don't call the shots about how the bushes are placed.
No, but we call the truck shots.
Yeah.
The truck shots we call.
I don't understand. Whatever.
Yeah. Fuck.
Whatever.
Fuck. Whatever. Last week I wanted to do trucks about singing, but we didn't get around to it.
I was out of town.
So maybe I'm going to do trucks this week about singing and the place that singing holds in society.
Singing and dancing. What's singing? What made you want to talk about singing?
Well, I went to a party up in upstate which was hosted by people who are of a singing persuasion. Shape note people. You ever hung around with shape note people?
Shape note people?
Shape note people.
What's
people
that mean?
Who sing shape note hymns.
Don't know what that is.
Shape note hymns are the sort of musical tradition of some very strict American Christians, but also just sort of like very serious business folk music kind of a thing.
Okay.
Like for example, one of the ones that we sang at this party, the lyrics are basically like, music is essentially a force for evil. But except for this kind of thing where we co-opt it for the work of good.
Oh my goodness. That's a pretty. That's a terrible philosophy.
But the songs are great. The songs are meant to be easily read. There aren't that many notes. And to be sung in a really aggressive 4-part harmony with a lot of really weird harmonies, but also big open harmonies to get the maximum feeling of sound out of the... Am I going to get sick if I drink out of this?
It's probably just dusty water.
Yay. Fuck, that's delicious. But, so yeah, shape notes. Shape note singing.
I was sad at first that you didn't mean people who are shaped like notes because they sing so much.
I.e.,
note shaped
round
people.
on the bottom and skinny on top.
Yeah.
Apple-bottomed people.
With a large,
large sweep of ponytail.
Yeah, with kind of an amount of gel to make it stick out at just the right angle.
Well, I mean, maybe there could be some people cosplaying that way, but... Nah, it's that and it's folk music. And, people who are really into folk music, they want to sing a lot.
Yeah.
They want to sing all the time. But the problem is that we live in a society right now where there's so many songs that it is very difficult to find a consensus song barrage with strangers. And then in addition to that, there's a whole range of people who don't want to sing with people.
Yeah.
And I would count you among those people.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, which is weird, man.
Why is it weird?
Because singing in a group setting is fun.
It is.
It's a fun group activity. You get to make a big noise. Even if it's not very good, it's still pretty good.
Right. So we're talking about sitting in a room singing the same song with a bunch of other people.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you do at church.
Yeah, or
at a concert for a band you really like.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the words.
Or, also just if you're hanging out, maybe.
I mean, yeah. I wouldn't say that if that context occurred to me that I would be opposed to singing. It's just that is a situation that I don't find myself in. Everybody in a room has agreed that they will sing a song that I, Josh Trevitt, know the words to.
Well, it's like
that's rare.
You have to. It's never, as I said, it's not something that will happen if you don't actively try to make it happen. And even among a group, I found
that's not entirely true. I was hanging out with a couple of friends, and they were doing sing-alongs to 90s pop punk, and I was like, why am I even here?
Well, that failed to satisfy one of the
I didn't know all the words.
Conditions that you
exactly
laid out there.
It's not that I was opposed to it, is what I was saying.
It's like even in a room where where a lot of people know the words, trying to get people to be like, okay, it's singing time now. Let's all sing together. There's a certain natural reticence that comes up even if you want to do it, because it's of itself an opening and sharing and vulnerability, I think.
Less so when the entire room is singing in unison, though.
True.
Karaoke is a little bit more scary. I'm a little scared of karaoke.
But
I've done
karaoke.
I've done that too. Karaoke.
Yeah.
I used to call it kakaroke when I was a kid, and people laughed because it sounded like kakarot. Yeah. Kakaroke. It's when you do your best to scream. Just like him.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah, that was pretty solid. But it got me to thinking about how there's definitely... I feel like there's definitely a crossover between people who sing easily and people who like broad jokes. Like easy singing and easy laughing. Like the sense of humor in folk music is kind of diabolical as a general matter.
That's true.
But just like a willingness to be swayed, I guess, is the thing that comes to me, because you're basically like, hey, this is a conduit to emotional manipulation. Let's all engage in it together, right?
Sure.
And it's interesting, and the way that music functions socially is interesting to me, because it's different from the way that I usually sing, which, as you know, if you've spent any time with me, lived in a house with me, been at a job that I've worked at.
Yeah, the way you usually sing is kind of to yourself.
To myself constantly.
Yeah.
And in snatches, in the middle of conversations, because I have a brain that associates fiercely and occasionally hijacks my conscious processes.
I sing to myself too, although I am, for the most part, okay doing it when there's nobody around.
Yeah.
But the brain wants to sing. I think
This is the thing. I think that we are all birds in this way. That like you want to surround yourself with a basic. Here I am. Here I am. Here I am. This is my cultural context. You know.
When I sing to myself, it's often when my mind is busy with something else. I sing when I'm playing PUBG. You've heard me hum to myself while playing PUBG.
Oh yeah.
But also just in bed this morning when I was like, looking at my phone, not awake yet. I found myself humming in like the shrillest voice I could muster, the Star Wars theme.
Just trying to psych yourself up.
No, it was just it's the kind of thing where you like you do it for a while and then you register to yourself, hey wait, have I been going?
Well, that's exactly right. That's the sense of humor that singing is all about.
Yeah.
And I think we all enjoy those jokes on a basic level.
I guess so, but I think to call it a joke is to misrepresent it slightly. Because it was literally it was a cry of boredom, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, I mean, what is a joke if not an attempt to punctuate the? Yeah,
I guess so.
In sense of it being like a discontinuity, a surprise.
Yeah. A joke I tell myself by tricking myself into thinking I wasn't going to sing Star Wars.
Right, and we joke on ourselves a lot, and it's a fun way to that's a relatively benign one right there.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a mean practical joke that we plan ourselves like so many other things. But yeah, I think there is that natural thing, and it's like I think part of singing in groups, even if you're singing something very, that everybody knows that's very straightforward, as opposed to like all bebopping together or something. You're sharing this sort of natural process, which is all about being unaware of what you're putting out to a certain extent. Like I imagine it's different for people who are polished, artistic singers.
Sure.
Like that's a different project. People who are really into making the harmonies work nice. But for me, it's mostly about...
Have you ever run into the guy who sings the harmony part at the concert and claps the offbeats and all that kind of shit?
I mean...
tangential to the kind of person you're talking about, but a subset.
Yeah, I occasionally sing harmony parts during group singing.
Mm-hmm. That's different.
But yeah...
that's adding something that wouldn't otherwise have been present. Whereas if you're just in a concert and singing the harmony parts, what you're doing is... You're like, for the people around you, you're making the harmony part the focus of the thing. And making yourself the focus of the thing. It comes down to there are some concerts where it's appropriate to do that, and some concerts where it's not. Maybe.
Like, at the Horse Lord show the other day, during the saxophone maelstrom portion of the evening's event, there was an upright piano just sitting there, and a guy started just pounding on it.
What, like an audience member?
Yeah.
Whoa, that's awesome.
And that was appropriate. Yeah. It wasn't very audible for obvious reasons because the saxophone meltdown in the Horse Lord show is loud as fuck.
Right.
But...
and the show had multiple naked people for those who haven't kept up.
Yes,
like,
it did.
This show just sounds... This show sounds like a real whole thing.
It was off both the hook and the chain. It was a real good time. And also occasioned my dancing, which is a precious thing if you've never seen it, when I really let go and become a danger to those around me. It's a lovely thing.
I accidentally shifted all the way down to neutral.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there are people who can't sing and there are people who can't dance. Or are they?
Huh?
Are there just people who are too self-conscious to sing and dance?
I think that, especially living as we do now in a panopticon of infinite possible shame, there is such a thing as people who could dance, but maybe even rightly feel a little bit afraid to, lest they be recorded and their foolishness. I mean, it's an outside chance, but their foolishness could go viral for all the world to see.
I feel like any dancing that's sincere is good dancing. I understand that's not the opinion of many mean people with cameras, but
right. Like, I would like to believe that too, but I don't think it always pans out that way. That's an unhelpful camera angle. There we go.
Given that it is relatively low stakes, and the public humiliation is one of the least serious bad things that can happen to you.
Well, yeah, I guess a video of you dancing in too silly a manner isn't likely to do you a great deal of harm.
Yeah.
But
people don't seem to, like, it was weird. Do you remember Damn Daniel?
Who?
Do you remember Damn Daniel?
Damn Daniel.
The meme?
Oh, yeah.
The Vine?
Yeah. Well, I never saw the original, but I heard it secondhand for sure.
Yeah, which it became a big thing for a while and has now vanished completely in the way that, the real good short-term fuse fads do. I was just like, wow, nobody seems to realize that this is bullying. that this kid has obviously been tormenting this other kid by making these observations about their personal style.
What's the context of the Vine? I don't know.
It's just a bunch of scenes of this kid going to the other kid like, "Damn, Daniel, those shoes," or whatever.
That is
just
bullying.
like effusive praise. And like
that's making the whole internet complicit in the bullying.
Yes, exactly. This kid's bullying, man. Like everybody in the world was bullying this kid for, and nobody seemed to realize that was bullying behavior because it's one of those substrates of bullying behavior that hides itself from authority figures.
Right.
Because kids understand psychology way better than adults somehow.
Yeah.
I still have not yet wrapped my mind around how bad adults are at recognizing basic behavior in so many circumstances. But yeah, no, I think that the risk of being the butt of everybody's joke, even if it's everybody in the world for the short term, is if you're a grown human being, it's not that big.
Yeah, it's true. But I ain't gonna blame you for being fearful of dancing. I mean, I have danced on occasion in public, not very often. And when you're in the right mindset, it can be fun.
Well, you made a point earlier about the guy who's singing harmony and tapping out polyrhythms on his knees at the show. Living your own trip is beautiful, but if you are then pulling focus from the performers, that's a different story.
That's true.
And some people may worry that if they dance, that is what will happen.
Yeah.
I remember once I was dancing with a friend of mine at a goth club. A friend of mine who is very status focused. I'm also very status focused, but this friend of mine had a different attitude toward it than I did. Mm-hmm. And I started dancing with him, and he's like, "Stop making fun of me." And I'm like, that is genuinely not what I'm doing. This is the only dancing that I'm capable of doing.
I think also, like, by bringing up the panopticon of shame, while like having your terrible dance immortalized on the internet is the worst case scenario. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm also just trying to say, we live in the society of the spectacle, and we judge each other frequently and ourselves based upon like how good a spectacle we can provide.
Right.
And I think in a way, dancing is taking on a certain toxic baggage that it maybe didn't always have attached to it.
By dancing, you're offering yourself up as a focus point of spectacle.
Yeah. Because
memes dance. That's what memes do.
Memes dance, and also just
babies dance.
Dancing. It might not always have been. Well, I can't. This is a complete guess. I don't know anything about the history of dancing, but I have a feeling that dancing maybe didn't used to be considered, at least in every culture, something you can do well versus poorly, or at least I would argue that it shouldn't have been.
Oh, there's back in. I mean, you were definitely always going to be judged for how well you could dance. Mm. I mean, I think that's been. I mean, like, great dancers were celebrated.
Well, yes,
and people were, and it was known like people were bad at dancing. The difference is that
if dancing is purely a communal thing, or purely even a ritual thing, or whatever it might be, I feel like it's when it's less of an individual thing.
The difference is that until relatively recently, dancing was a thing that everybody was expected to be able to do. Mm. Like, you're going to be called upon to do some dancing at some point if you're a member of Class X, and like most classes,
right.
I think, of different kinds. And you were going to be called upon to sing, in church, or, so like it was basically generally expected that everybody should be able to sing, everybody should be able to dance. And like there was a period of time when it was expected that everybody should be able to draw. That like draftsmanship was just a basic skill that you should have, even if you weren't particularly good at it.
Interesting.
But it wouldn't be weird to ask somebody to draw something without knowing whether they were an artist.
Until very recently, it was expected that you'd be able to have cogent handwriting, and I got lucky being born when I did.
Well, I bet you could have developed some if it
oh, dude, I tried. For a long time, I tried.
Various forms of dyspraxia aside, I think that there is a sort of I think that as we move away from those baseline expectations and become more and more specialized. But then again, 50 years ago, it was a very specialist thing to be able to type. So
Right.
And now it's universally expected that you should be able to do that.
Yeah. Can we talk? We might not have anything to say, but it's interesting that the brain seems to want to dance just as much as it wants to sing.
Yeah,
And it raises interesting questions about how we have made singing and dancing a little bit more pressured than they used to be, maybe by mistake. And
I can't speak for everybody, but I can't not. If there's something on with a coercive rhythm, I'll move to it.
Sure.
To the extent that I kind of dislike funk music because it feels like it's putting a lot of pressure on me.
Right. Everybody. There's all these different outlets. You can bob your head and feel like you're dancing. You can just dance on your own. You can wiggle in your armchair.
Mm-hmm.
You can dance foolishly around the living room when no one else is home.
Or when everybody else is home.
And then you can do all these things. Well, you can do all those things except that last one.
Yes.
And still say I don't dance.
Indeed, even though
you probably in some way dance.
Your heart beeps to the beep of the bum.
Yeah. When you fucking, it's like a thing I notice about myself sometimes is that when maybe someone's playing music I'm not in the mood for in the subway or wherever it is, I will consciously change the rhythm of my steps to avoid
being entrained by it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I think the natural thing often is to sync your steps up to the music that you're hearing. You can see other people doing it. And is that dancing? Why do people dance? Why don't other animals dance? Do other animals dance?
Other animals do dance.
Whoa.
Yes.
Give me an example.
Cockatoos probably.
I've seen that. I've seen videos.
You've seen videos of that happening, but yeah. Cats. Birds definitely move in time to rhythms.
And there's mating dances too. That's a thing as well.
Indeed. And I think that there's some evidence of other domestic pets trying it, although it's hard for a lot for a lot of animals. They're reacting to something, but a bird can get a decent groove going.
Yeah. But you can see how the theories emerge about how singing, dancing, music is somehow, if not uniquely human, at least glue that human society uses.
Oh, it's definitely about social development and social intelligence. It's about mimicry. People have posited that it's the same thing that makes parrots able to try to take a crack at human language is the same thing that makes them able to dance, is that you're watching other people or paying attention to the world around you and then molding yourself in sort of, if you can move in sync
right
with something else, then you're communicating.
Interesting.
Yeah, and of course, there are languages which are more singy than speaky, or incorporate more tonal information in them.
Yeah.
But I think that it comes back to a really basic place, which is part of why I value it. One singing that you and I do together casually is the game of nonsense lyrics.
Yes.
Which is massive Dumbo territory.
Dumbo territory? What do you mean?
It's not witty. We behave as though it is.
It's occasionally witty. Thank you very much.
It's not.
That is, I cannot. I can't co-sign this. You can't just disqualify an entire genre of joke making from being ever witty.
The way we do it is not witty. And yet we have definite criteria as to what's the more successful and less successful.
Yeah.
Which I think has mostly to do with sonority and the sort of aesthetic quality of language than with anything else.
It's the sound of a gun. It's the sound of a gun. It's the sound of a gun. It's the sound of a gun.
That's definitely somewhat witty. But yeah, and it's like finding repetition and mispronunciation funny is that's a joke that a toddler can get behind.
Sure.
And I don't mean to degrade it by saying that. I mean that in that way it's a conduit to deep, commonly held reaction patterns in humans, and maybe also in other critters. Yeah, but like if I go, I feel my heart beep to the boopity bum. You know,
Yeah.
it feels distinctly pleasurable.
Yeah.
In a
What you're doing there is a form of songwriting.
yeah, but endless riffage.
Yeah.
Which is kind of maybe what people see as the devolutionary or atavistic aspect of our current Tumblr humor model.
They're wrong.
It's all about drumming together.
Drumming together is great.
Yeah,
There needs to be a space for it.
indeed. They call the. I mean, it's like people are. It's all like the sort of the common disdain for hippies in this particular instance of your drum circles and your folk singers is all about a dislike for.
The shit isn't rarefied enough.
Exactly, it's a dislike for the immediate,
Yeah.
and it's a dislike for vulnerability. It's it's like the instinctive hatred and violence toward vulnerability that underlies so much of what makes our culture toxic. It's like a horror of softness or of childish behavior.
So are we in favor of hippie folk songs?
I mean, I personally am.
Yeah.
It's like I'm also like irreversibly jaded fuck, and there's a point to which I'm going to be like, well, I can only Prairie Home Companion so far in this life. This is doing this parody of a song that's like 70 years old, which has some topical references about New Jersey, is both delightful, and another part of my brain can also tell that I shouldn't be delighted by this.
But this is a different subject from the sweetheart, vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, or is it?
Strains of heart.
I think we all.
The most vulnerable song ever written. I heard the voice of a pork chop say, "Come home to me and rest."
What's that from?
That's Michael Hurley.
Yeah.
No, wait, that's him covering somebody. That's one of his covers.
But yeah, I think that there is that sort of. You resist vulnerability in yourself if you came up being a target, and so you gradually take on the voice of people who shouted you down for singing your goofy songs as you strolled through the park or whatever.
Did people shout down the goofy songs? Did they at some point?
In my life?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goofy.
I was not rewarded for goofy behavior.
That's interesting. I always
by my peers.
I always witnessed, or I always had a sense that goofiness was a good way to be accepted.
It depends
when
on.
I was a kid.
I mean, it depends on what kind of goofiness. My natural goofiness strikes some people as uncanny.
Yeah, I guess I get what
Maybe
you mean. Like
a little bit too embarrassing, even for the jokesters.
You want to look like you're doing it on purpose. It has to have an appearance of intentionality.
Yeah, and like you don't want it to feel like it's writing you rather than the other way around. But it's always writing you.
Sure.
And the more mediated it is, the less intense, the less intact it is. Which, doesn't mean that I think that all songs should be foodle-foodles. But I also think that we are sometimes at our best when the stakes are the lowest. And my preference for art that's improvisatory and unpolished is well documented. That's part of where that comes from.
As long as it's not jazz.
Jazz is not unpolished.
It can be.
Yeah, I mean, show me some really bad jazz and maybe I'll like it.
I wonder if I could find it. I don't know.
The Baz Jad I've heard is mostly just felt uninspired rather than genuinely out of control. Everybody's too good at their instruments.
It's true. Jazz does have a culture of expertise somehow.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's basically why jazz has felt moribund to me since, essentially since white people took it over. It's like, how well can we do this folk art, And like when I say folk art, I don't mean to say that the folks who were doing like art jazz, like Ellington, jazz as composition, were doing folk art. I mean, like folk music in terms of like here's the basic forms, here's the scales. Learn to do this the best way you possibly can. And once you master it, you can break all the rules and go back down. But that's its own kind of valuable thing to do. But it doesn't get to the thing that I'm talking about.
Sure, I see what you mean.
Improvisation on a set of established forms, themes, and variations is not the same thing.
What about the squeaky voice Nobi jazz improv?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. There you go. The true essence of singing. Hopefully you're listening to it right now.
Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty easy
Come
to
on.
arrange.
Come on. Just come on. Come on.
The parking space is too easy. There needs to be a trick.
What is going on?
I feel like I spent most of that trucks talking, Josh.
I was also talking.
Yeah, that's true.
Did you mean to spend most of this truck singing? Is that what you're saying?
I kind of should have, right?
Yeah.
Should have celebrated the art of the hoot.
Everybody drives a truck.
Everybody drives a truck to a place.
Well, bye.